Welcome to the Informed Conservative Podcast, where along with the Informed Conservative blog, we bring you the best in conservative news, opinion, and conversation. Visit us online at informedconservative.us, follow us on Twitter at ConserveBlog, and join the conversation on our Facebook page.
Good morning. It's Saturday, August 24th, 2019. Thank you for tuning in to the Informed Conservative, broadcasting live, as always, from our studio in New Jersey. Be sure to tune in live every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 a.m. and give us a call to let us know what's on your mind, 914-338-1720. If you miss a live broadcast, you can listen to archived episodes on our website, www.informedconservative.blog. Be sure to join us on social media. You can join our Facebook group, The Informed Conservative, follow us on Twitter at ConserveBlog, and subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Informed Conservative. You'll find links to our social media channels on our website, again, www.informedconservative.blog. Our guest today is United States Senate candidate Tricia Flanagan. If you have a question for Tricia, give us a call, 914-338-1720. Before we get to Tricia, allow me to share a few announcements. The Camden County GOP will host the opening of their headquarters today at 5501 Route 42 in Blackwood. Come out and meet the 2019 Camden County Republican candidates, see the new headquarters, and spend some time with your fellow Republicans. Food, drinks, prizes, and giveaways, along with Trump 2020 campaign gear, will be available. There are Recall Governor Murphy petition signing events going on all over New Jersey, including events throughout the month in Atlantic County, Hudson County, Somerset County, Cumberland County, Cape May County, and many more. You can find information on the Recall Phil Murphy petition Facebook page or by visiting www.helpsavenj.com. If you're hosting or know of an event you'd like announced on the Informed Conservative podcast, please do send me an email, mike@informedconservative.us. Today our guest is United States Senate candidate Tricia Flanagan. If you have a question for Tricia or you'd like to speak to her, give us a call, 914-338-1720. Tricia, good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Oh, good morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
Saw that you were listening to the Bob and Steve show this morning. I called in again or called in as well, and was very excited to have you on today. So I'm glad we were able to do this.
Yeah, it's a great morning, right? You know, Bob and Steve show, and now your show. So it's a great morning for conservatives.
This is a Tricia Flanagan Saturday.
Oh, you are too kind, but I'll take it. Thank you.
So, Tricia, I always say I believe that people vote not only on issues, but for people who they like and believe in. So tell us a little bit about you and why you decided to run.
Sure. I mean, I still think I'm sort of the unexpected politician. I wasn't marinated in politics. I really believe that our country was founded on the principle of the citizen candidate. Those who come from the private sector, bring their time, their talent, their treasure into Washington, D.C. to do the best for our country, and then go back to live with the consequences of their policies. And I bring that spirit to the race. I come from a military family, and I was always taught that dedication to faith, family, and flag is the most important thing you can do. I've always known that I wanted to serve my country in some way. I didn't feel called to the military, but I do feel that the journey in my life, the experience that I bring to the table has brought me to a time such as this to fight for conservative Republican principles, and I'm ready to do that.
And you're bringing us together, Tricia. You know, I've heard you speak. I've watched other interviews that you've done. I've read through your website. Unlike the person that you're running against.
There's a saying in my community, you're dipping into Kool-Aid and you don't even know the flavor.
You know, when he said that they say in my community, my first thought was you are a United States senator representing New Jersey. Your community senator is the state of New Jersey. We are all your community, not one block in Newark.
Oh, exactly. And we've seen how time and again Cory Booker has turned his back and his heart on our state. And I'll give you a real world example, a recent one. While Cory Booker is out around the country running for president and not paying attention to his own state, but when he does, he gives a nod to illegals instead of real citizens. There was a homeless veteran that needed help. He lives in the woods in middle part of the state, and he had reached out to Cory Booker, never got a response. He reached out to me. I've become friends with him. I was able to get him registered to vote. And within 24 hours, we were able to assemble a team to make sure that he got what he needed. And that's just one example. If Cory Booker is not going to have his ear to the ground in New Jersey, and again, bring his heart to the table, our state of New Jersey doesn't have a chance. I am the candidate that's working on the ground already. I'm working for the citizens of our state. I'll continue to do that. If you send me to Washington, D.C. won't feel so far away anymore.
Tricia, can I get you a glass of Newark water while we're having this conversation?
I think I'll pass on that. I'd rather get the Newark folks the clean water that they need, and then I'll join them in a glass, and we'll toast to the success.
It's amazing to me that Governor Murphy has been going on and on and on about the Newark water crisis, calling on Washington to assist in the case of the Newark water crisis, without ever mentioning that his buddy Cory Booker played a huge role in the Newark water crisis.
Exactly, and they both just want to complain about the situation without doing anything. And I've already reached out to local mayors, and what we're going to do, part of what I bring to the table is I've worked at the juncture of business solutions my entire career, 25 years in the pharmaceutical world, but I started my life as a biochemist doing oncology research, and I'm used to looking at the nitty-gritty details to find out what went wrong and, most importantly, how we can fix it. And I'm bringing that solutions-oriented perspective to the challenges that we have in our state. And I've already begun reaching out to like-minded officials in our state to make sure that, let's get Newark the clean water that they need. Let's not worry right now about the belly aching that Phil Murphy and Cory Booker are doing. They're just in the realm of complaining. I'm in the world of solutions, and I think that's what we have to deliver to all New Jersey.
And we expect a United States Senator to work on solutions and important issues for residents of New Jersey. You look at Cory Booker, and then I realize you're not running against him, but you look at Menendez. In 2019, the largest issue I've seen Menendez focus on is beach umbrellas. Are you kidding me? This guy has been focused on beach umbrellas for the last 6 months.
Oh, exactly. I mean, that's another example of that liberal, what I like to call the liberal trifecta that hit New Jersey. We're losing every direction we look. And here's something that I'd like to focus on for a little bit, if you don't mind, about the numbers. I run hardcore analytics on my campaign, and everybody says, well, how in the world did Menendez get reelected? And how did Phil Murphy get elected? The Democrats have told us this big lie that New Jersey is irretrievably blue. But the great news is that that's not true. By the numbers, when you look at the demographics, we've been blue by voter turnout, not by voter demographics. Even Gallup recently confirmed that New Jersey skews conservative. And I'd like to, unpack some of those numbers. The reason that the Democrats stand on this numbers platform is when you look at just the registered Republicans versus the registered Democrats, we are outnumbered almost by 2-1. It's 2.1 million registered Democrats in New Jersey to 1.2 million registered Republicans. But the treasure trove of voters for the conservatives are in the largest sector of voters. It's the 2.4 million already registered unaffiliated voters who skew conservative. And by my projections, we've got about 3 million voters. That's 52% of the New Jersey electorate that is ready to come out and vote conservative. And that's the key. We have to, the assumption has been that if a Republican runs in New Jersey, they have to appeal to the Democrats and be kind of a Democrat-like candidate. That's exactly the prescription for losing. What we need is a hardcore, real conservative, real Republican, and that's going to be the win for 2020. That's the kind of Republican that I am. I'm ready to do that, and I'm ready to take New Jersey to a place that's better than we've ever been.
Tricia, when we look at Murphy getting elected, for example. Murphy got elected really for two reasons, as far as I'm concerned. It was an extremely low turnout election, and he promised legalized marijuana, which A, he didn't deliver on, and B, he couldn't deliver on anyway since marijuana remains federally illegal. But how do we get conservatives and Republicans in New Jersey motivated and out to vote?
That is an excellent question, and that's going to be the game changer for 2020. And I think the reality is, I'll give you another real-world example. When I was out campaigning in Ocean County and some of the more conservative areas, I actually had people chasing me down. There was a guy that got in his truck and said, I just heard that you were a conservative running in the state of New Jersey. How do I get in touch with you? I'm going to vote for you. The reality is that there haven't been true conservatives that strike the right chord with that, again, largest sector of voters, that 2.4 million registered conservatives. And the key is going to be to get to meet all of these voters. I'm committed to shaking hands with every voter in New Jersey. It's a tall task, but I'm ready for it. And I think that when we combine that right message and right candidate with the ears that are ready to hear it, and most importantly, the voters that are ready to go to the booth and vote for me, I think that's going to be the game changer. When you look at the conservative counties in New Jersey, and again, that 52% of the electorate, some of our counties are more conservative than the Deep South. When you compare a heat map of New Jersey and Alabama, we look like the conservative ones. And when you have a candidate like me who supports our president, when you have a candidate like me who is ready to fight for our Second Amendment rights, I've already formed a Constitution caucus. I'm ready to go to Washington and fight for us. And when you have a candidate like me who is pro-life, let's face it, not only are the conservatives pro-life, and I was honored to be the only Republican endorsed by New Jersey Right to Life, the second largest Right to Life organization in our country, but there are 34% of the Democrats registered who are pro-life Catholics, single-issue voters who are ready to get behind me. I've also been endorsed by Bishop Renee Henry Cressida, one of America's most beloved bishops. When you look at that kind of lay of the land, and when you bring a candidate that's ready to bring that message, we'll have the enthusiasm necessary to get them to the polls, and that's the win.
You know, Tricia, in the last 2 weeks, I've had Mike Testa and Josh Duval on the podcast. Today we have you. You've only been on for 14 minutes, and I already love what I'm hearing. I really think part of the key here is that we have great Republican candidates running in the state right now. We are really bubbling to the top, the best of the best. You, Mike, Josh, I mean, we have great candidates, and I think that's going to make a huge difference at the polls.
I think you're absolutely right. This is the beginning of the New Jersey Republican resurgence. I know Mike Testa and I know Josh Duval. I love them both. And I think that, I've mentioned that Booker, Menendez, and Murphy are the liberal trifecta. I think that Flanagan, Testa, and Duval are the Republican conservative trifecta that's really the winning ticket.
Tricia, one of the questions I was receiving from listeners when I announced that you were going to be on the podcast was in reference to you running as an independent last year. There were a lot of questions, a lot of concerns about the fact that you ran as an independent instead of a Republican. So let's get into that. Explain to folks why you ran as an independent.
Sure. And I ran as an independent Republican. And, the reality is that the fractionation in the New Jersey Republican Party occurred long before I ever came onto the scene. And what happened is it goes back to what I was discussing about kind of the Democrat lights that were running as Republicans. A real conservative can win. Look at Chris Christie. He was the last Republican candidate that really embraced conservative values and won. So my feelings for the last election were that we were fighting for the heart and the soul of the New Jersey Republican Party. I'm a lifelong Republican. I come from a strong family of Republicans that pretty much go all the way back to the party of Lincoln. It's the party that I love. It's the principles and values that I hold near and dear to my heart. And I was the only candidate that stood up for the national GOP values. Again, support for our president, Second Amendment values, and most importantly, the fight for the right to life. When I saw the lay of the land, I knew that I wasn't going to injure any candidate's chances. I still want Republicans in charge. But I saw that if we didn't stand up and fight for the real Republican Party, what would happen is we become the front porch of the Democrat Party. Democrats want to take over not just our state, but our party and our values and principles. And I was bold enough and brave enough to stand up and say, we have to anchor the party. We have to anchor our principles. It was a stepping stone to 2020. I made that decision to fight for the voice of the voiceless in that election and give voters a chance to feel good about voting for a true conservative. Again, it didn't affect the balance of the voting equation and of what we were able to achieve electoral wise. But it did set the foundation for us going into 2020 as a strong Republican Party. We're now conservative united, and I believe that that's our pathway to victory.
I was reading your website, FlanaganForSenate.org. The Second Amendment is a very timely issue and an issue that is important to many New Jersey voters and listeners to the Informed Conservative. If you've listened to some of our past podcasts, we've had Second Amendment rights advocates on the podcast. We've had lots of callers that have been Second Amendment rights advocates. And I think that gun owners in New Jersey are feeling especially pushed back, whatever the word is I'm looking for, by the Murphy administration right now. Tell us your thoughts and your views on preserving our Second Amendment rights.
Oh, it's critically important, and you're right that Phil Murphy et al. Have been encroaching on gun owners' rights for some time now, and we're really in one of the worst positions of any state in the country when it comes to gun ownership rights. Look, I'm a huge constitutional proponent. I'm a constitutional conservative, constitutional Republican. The Second Amendment shall not be infringed. That means for New Jerseyans as well. And when we look at the data, no red flag law, no further encroachment on our rights is going to make a difference in the recent issues that we've seen bubble to the surface. No mass shooter would have been stopped by any kind of so-called red law. And so why are we imposing further restrictions on law-abiding citizens and allowing just the criminals to have guns? That doesn't make any sense. And there are constitutional provisions that we can stand on to push back on Phil Murphy in New Jersey. We know by, for example, Brown versus Board of Education, that states' rights, that's protected in the 10th Amendment, but the U.S. Senate seat that I'm vying for is where the U.S. Constitution meets those 10th Amendment rights of every state. And as we've seen with Supreme Court decisions as well as invoked legislation, states' rights can only stand up until they meet the overarching rights that are provided in our United States Constitution. We need a senator that's bold enough and brave enough to make that argument and to fight for New Jerseyans and their rights to not be infringed any longer. I believe in those rights. I will do that. I'm loud enough and I'm bold enough, and I'm ready to serve and make sure that New Jerseyans aren't infringed anymore.
Murphy has said over and over again that he's going to make us the number one state in reference to gun control. And most of us don't see that as a positive. And the reality is all he's really doing is infringing on the rights of legal gun owners. His gun legislation did not save the life of a gas station attendant in Edison who was shot and killed in December. Tricia, it killed me. I was watching, what was it, a week and a half ago-ish now, the shooting that was happening in Philadelphia. So here is 6 Philadelphia police officers that were shot and in the hospital. Here are 2 Philadelphia police officers who are trapped in the home of the shooter. Here is a large number of Philadelphia police officers actively getting fired upon. The mayor of Philadelphia, instead of, God bless my officers, God protects my officers, what did he do? In the middle of all of that, he had a press conference and started talking about gun control. So obviously I realize that's Philadelphia, not New Jersey, but to me that's the mindset of liberals. It's the gun's fault. It's not the shooter's fault. And the reality is that shooter had 7 or 9 felony convictions, I forget which, but he could not have legally owned a firearm anyway. He obviously, it hasn't come out officially, but he obviously obtained his firearms on the street. And no gun law, no gun control speech was going to stop that shooter that night. But again, here are all of these officers in the face of danger, and the mayor of Philadelphia holds a press conference to talk about gun control.
Well, you're exactly right, and it's horrific, it's egregious, and it's disgusting. And you talk about, Phil Murphy's big words, and Booker actually wants a gun confiscation program. Well, those are haughty words, and they're actually unconstitutional. And that's what nobody's bringing up, and that's what I'm ready to fight back about. And when you look at these horrific mass shootings, no one wants that to happen. But it's heroes with guns that oftentimes save more lives. When you look at that awful church shooting in Texas, it was a hero with an AR-15 that came back and saved other lives, saved that shooter, and made sure that he didn't pull the trigger on even another victim. When you look at the horrible MSD shooting in that school in Florida, Coach Aaron Fife was a gun owner, and he didn't have his firearm with him, and he shielded. I even get choked up thinking about it. He shielded and saved students' lives with his own body. He lost his life, and many had said if he had had his firearm with him, he could have possibly saved those children's lives, possibly his own, and could have taken that shooter out. And while the sheriff's department was standing down in the parking lot with their firearms, a hero with a gun, time and again, could save lives and save those situations. And I'll quickly add, data-wise, that the majority of mass shootings and majority of gun violence in 2019 and 2018 are in the states with the with the strictest gun control laws. So nobody can tell me that more laws restricting our rights are going to help anything. And in fact, it's heroes with guns, and it's the full utilization of the Second Amendment that I believe has to be reinforced now, not put to the side.
And I'll say to you, assuming that you're going to get elected to the Senate, because if I have anything to do with it, you definitely will. Part of the problem, in my view, is HIPAA laws. And I'll give you an example. I lived in Pennsylvania for a period of time. Pennsylvania, as you probably know, does issue concealed carry permits. You go to the county building, you fill out a form, they process it and basically ensure that you don't have a criminal background, and they issue your concealed carry permit. So I've said this on the podcast before. I knew a kid, he was 19 or 20 years old. One day I see him and he's carrying a gun. And now this kid had been kicked out of every high school he ever went to because of violent outbursts. He had a psychological history. He had been fired from jobs for the same. And here he has a concealed carry permit. He's carrying a gun. And I said to him, "How did you get that?" And he laughed and he said, "The form is all self-disclosure. They can't check my medical records. They have no idea of what my history is." And Tricia, that is a big problem here. If you look at these mass shooters, all of the signs and signals are there, but yet the issuing authorities that are issuing gun permits don't have access to medical records to know that those signs and signals are there. So when you get to the Senate, that is something, in my opinion, that needs to be very seriously looked at.
Yes, you bring up an excellent point, and part of the issue is that a lot of these records are sealed because they occur when they're juveniles, and I have a purview into cases in New Jersey where there are problematic students that the teachers and the faculty and the superintendent want ejected from the classroom, and they want it to be on their permanent record, and it's liberal laws that the liberal judiciary pushes back and says, no, every child has a right to an education. You can't remove a child from a public school. And this is an ongoing fight. There are reams and 10-inch files on a variety of school district desks that are trying to accomplish just what you're talking about. And I bring a unique set of skills to the table because, again, I come from a business and a healthcare background and also a technology and data communication background. And what you're talking about is cross-communication of data sources, not only getting those files into the system and not only releasing them as juvenile records as well as the HIPAA issues that you're talking about, but we have to navigate this space and make sure that MSD, for example, another case in point, the FBI databases did not communicate to each other. There actually was data there that could have prevented that incident, but the data sources were not cross-communicating. So when I'd like to say when as well, when I get to the U.S. Senate, this is something that I really want to tackle, and I bring the unique perspective as well as the unique experience to navigate through this to make sure that it happens.
One of the issues that I think you're very uniquely qualified to take on is healthcare reform. And again, I was reading about it on your website. It's commonly accepted by now that the Affordable Care Act is failed legislation. I can tell you, as someone who's self-employed in New Jersey, I have to go through the exchange. I recently, within the last 6 months, was given a medical diagnosis I didn't expect, and really realized how bad my health insurance is. So I'm forced to go through the exchange now. I used to be able to buy health insurance on the open market. I can no longer do that, being owning a small business here in New Jersey. I'm going through the exchange. I pay $900 a month for my health insurance with a $15,000 deductible. And it's just insane. Healthcare is no longer competitive. What are your thoughts on healthcare reform?
This is really the crown jewel in my 5-point plan because, like you said, I do bring that experience to the table, and it's a fully fleshed out plan. To begin with, I'm sorely offended that we as Americans have to beg a third-party provider for the use of our own healthcare dollars. My number one goal in my healthcare plan, which I am calling the American Healthcare Restoration Act, to replace Obamacare. We're going to replace it with something. Let's replace it with something that works for all Americans. And what I do is I spread that choice across a couple of sectors of our healthcare system. Number one, I want to make sure that our healthcare is truly affordable. And my plan decreases premiums by, in many cases, a half to a third. And in many cases, depending on the situation, there's oftentimes no deductible. And the other piece is that I want to increase access to quality care and innovative treatment. And those really are two different things. And so my plan accomplishes all of that. In some cases, I mean, there's a savings annually of, in many cases, $24,000 to $36,000. But most importantly, your choice is restored, and our American standard of health care is intact. And I'll give you another real-world example. Even if you have some of the best healthcare insurance, some Blue Cross Blue Shield programs, some catalog plans even, if, God forbid, you have to use it, and maybe there's a chemotherapy situation involved, there are cutting-edge, innovative treatments that are curing cancer. They're immuno-oncology therapies, but they're very expensive, and they're excluded from most plans. And so you're mandated on most insurance plans to go through at least one, sometimes 2 rounds of regular generic chemotherapy, which depletes the immune system. And then some plans will then pay for an immuno-oncology therapy. But the tragedy is that those IOs are dependent on a patient having a robust immune system because it utilizes their immune system to cure the cancer. How likely do you think it is, after going through 1 or 2 rounds of chemo that depresses the immune system, that patient's going to survive? Tragically, it doesn't. It doesn't often happen. My plan gives you the choice. It decreases your premiums, and it makes sure that you get those life-saving therapies that is the standard of our care in this country.
Tricia, let me tell you, I don't know if I've said it publicly on the podcast, but I was diagnosed as being in kidney failure. So I live in Cherry Hill. I am right over the bridge from some of the best university kidney centers in this area. My insurance has, again, that I pay $900 a month and a $15 or $17, whatever it is, $1,000 deductible. My insurance has declined my ability to go to those university kidney centers. Told me I could go to one hospital in central New Jersey. And I'm seeing doctors today more than I ever have in my life. And it's amazing to me when you sit with these doctors and they say, I really want to I really want to prescribe you this test, but let me see if your insurance company is going to pay for it. I've actually had a doctor say to me, I believe that you need to be on this medication, but I need to see if your insurance is going to pay for it.
Exactly. And it's like we're in bizarro world. That's exactly how not to practice medicine. And, patients love my plan because of the accessibility and the low cost. And physicians love my plan also. I've been endorsed by several medical care alliances in New Jersey because doctors are finally saying that we now get to practice the art and science of medicine the way we were trained to and the way we want to. So to your exact point, it restores all of these other, very important financial and outcomes issues, but it also preserves and restores, really, the doctor-patient relationship. When your doctor says, this is the best that I see for you, that should happen immediately for the health and well-being of you as the patient. That will change if you send me to Washington, D.C. I guarantee it.
I look forward to that changing when you get to D.C. Tricia, you live in Central Jersey, do you not?
I do.
Yeah. So it's a sub, not a hoagie, right?
No comment, lest I offend you, because I'm right on that line, right? To tell you the truth, you want to hear the truth, it's a grinder for me because my family's from New England. That's a whole other story. But no, it's hey, look, I'll eat it either way. I don't care what you call it. It tastes good.
Last weekend I co-hosted. Bob was out, so I co-hosted the Bob and Steve show with Steve Cush, and we had the sub versus hoagie debate on the air. I come from Ocean County originally. I live in Cherry Hill now. And, obviously everybody down here calls it a hoagie, but I didn't know what that word was until I moved here. And, I'd like to say that the word hoagie was invented by some guy in Philadelphia who couldn't spell sub.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So, Tricia, in addition to being the number one state that people leave, New Jersey has been rated one of the worst states to do business. And I was reading on your website that you have some thoughts on improving the business climate here in New Jersey.
Oh, I really do. And again, I've already started reaching out there. I've already formed a tri-state commission. I want to get the lifeblood going. And I also want to make sure that New Jersey leads the way as the next technology hub of our country. You're right. People are leaving, and the tragedy is that when you look at every sector, we're losing great workers, but I'll focus just on the engineering sector right now. New Jersey graduates more engineers than any other state in the country, but yet they're fleeing in record numbers. That has to change because we're poised and ready to be the next technology hub, not just of the East Coast, but of all America. We have so much talent here. And if we simply change those dynamics a little bit, especially with the taxation situation, which, again, there are constitutional provisions to push back on that at the U.S. Senate level, I'll make sure that we're attracting the best talent, but we're also keeping it here in our great state. We are ready to be better than we've ever been before. And it's not just the technology sector. It's white and blue-collar sectors. We also have a great potential to be the next oil refinery hub as well. And, we have the challenge is we have to make sure that these Green New Deals don't stifle the progress and don't stifle the shining future that we have ahead. We can be the most attractive state in the country instead, and that's my aim to do that with my living economy plan.
And, when you look at the $15 minimum wage, when you look at a lot of the programs that not only Governor Murphy, but the Democrats in general are putting forth, it puts the burden of, let me phrase this correctly, it puts the burden of folks earning on business instead of the people themselves. Now, I would be a supporter of let's help people get job training, let's help people get college degrees if that's what's appropriate, but let's not mandate that businesses be responsible for you making a living wage. As far as I'm concerned, it's my responsibility to ensure that I can make a living wage, not an employer's responsibility to ensure that I make it. And my business is human resources consulting. I am in the job market, in the employment market every single day. We are in the best job market and economy today than most of us will ever remember. There are jobs out there. There are high-paid jobs out there, but you have to have the skill set, and you have to be able to go out there and get those jobs. But instead, we're creating this environment where it's up to businesses to ensure that you, again, make a living wage and have a job and all of that. It's just so far backwards as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it really is, and that's what has to change in our state. We have to be able to leverage the great economy that's going on all around us and make it live for New Jersey. And, yeah, rather than a mandated living wage that's going to be a growth stifling mechanism, I want that living economy that's going to get the lifeblood moving. And, I mean, your point is exactly, it's perfectly well taken, because even the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, shows that when you implement a mandated living wage of $15, 4 million jobs are lost. That's their projection, not mine. And we're seeing how that bears out in the areas that have started to implement that. That's exactly the wrong way to go. Wages are increasing for the first time in a decade. The average by the federal economic numbers, the average wage right now is at $27.77. And that's across all sectors again. And to your point, not everybody has to go to college. There are jobs that are ready and open for New Jerseyans to thrive in every sector. Let's harness that. Let's not stifle it further by electing somebody like Cory Booker, who's just going to join with Murphy and make it worse for New Jerseyans. Let's open our economy up. Let's live again. Let's prosper again. It's time to do that. And that's another guarantee I'll make. I will fight for that when you send me to Washington.
Tricia, what drives me insane is to watch Murphy take credit for President Trump's job market. In other words, Murphy gets on social media constantly touting the great job market we have here in New Jersey. My biggest fear for New Jersey is when our economy turns around, and eventually it will. Our economy is cyclical. It's always going to turn around. When our economy turns around, New Jersey is going to be in real trouble, and that is going to be a direct result of Phil Murphy, Cory Booker, and Menendez.
Yes, you're so right. I mean, the time is now to leverage the opportunity, and I laugh as well when I hear, anyone that joins Phil Murphy in saying that this is because of Obama. There's a real easy and clear-cut way to look at the difference, and it's the GDP. I mean, we had gotten used to 1.9% growth under Obama, and him talking about, do you have a magic wand to make all of these different sectors thrive again? Well, guess what? You don't need a magic wand. You just need President Trump at the helm, because we're seeing that increase right away in GDP. And that's something that we can root directly to President Trump's economy. And we would never see this kind of flourishing if it weren't for President Trump. And again, I want New Jersey to get the full bite of that apple, the full growth and prosperity that's going to be attached to that. And we have to move in a Republican direction to make sure that happens, not backwards, but forward. We need that bright new day, and I'm ready to bring it.
We're talking with U.S. Senate candidate Tricia Flanagan. If you have a question for Tricia, give us a call, 914-338-1720. We do have a caller from the 856 area code. What's your name and where you're calling from?
This is J.R. Carmen of the New Jersey Constitutional Republicans.
J.R., thank you very much for your call. How are you?
Good to talk to you, Mike and Tricia. And I wanted to say that hi, Tricia. I wanted to say that Tricia Flanagan is indeed the constitutional Republican candidate for the Senate for the state of New Jersey, and we're very excited about her candidacy. And she understands the need for the restitution of the initial principles of the Republican Party, which go right back to the Declaration of Independence, the first two paragraphs. And she also understands the importance of a group like the New Jersey Constitutional Republicans in helping to educate our citizens to fill that void that's been created through the elimination of civics and American history in our schools and our institutions of education. So we're very, very happy that Tricia's running, and we're encouraged by her candidacy.
You must be very excited because between Tricia and Mike Testa, you've got two candidates that you can stand solidly behind.
Yeah, it's correct, Mike, and they're part of what I've dubbed the Republican resurgence, which is occurring in New Jersey. And along with Michael, who's spearheading this movement, of course, because his election is coming up in 2 months, approximately 2 months, and the importance of him winning that election is essential I'm going to be doing a video. NJCR will be doing a video about that election coming up, and we anticipate doing videos with Tricia too as we move into 2020. And we're letting a lot of disenfranchised conservatives and Republicans know that now we do have representatives now who are looking back to Lincoln, looking back to Reagan, looking back to Coolidge, looking back to actual constitutional Republicans as leaders, and properly representing the people. And I've talked to Antoine McClellan and Eric Simonson, who are the Assembly candidates running on the LD1 candidate, and they believe in these principles as well. We have local candidates, freeholders like Doug Albrecht, who also believe in these principles. So it's starting to resonate from top to bottom, and that's what's going to be important for Republicans to once again gain majorities again. We believe that Republicans have to fight, and we have to fight for the preservation of our Constitution and our constitutional Republican form of government, because we know that the Democrats are determined to end it and to shove us into a total socialism. And the Republican Party, therefore, becomes the last defenders of the Constitution, and Tricia Flanagan understands this, and this is why we are so encouraged with this Republican resurgence that's occurring now in New Jersey of all states.
It is incredible, and when you look at a Democratic Party that's moving further and further left, and as I like to call them, more and more radical, we have a party that's getting stronger and stronger, getting closer and closer back to our roots and really what we were founded upon, and getting back to the Constitution. We are becoming more conservative while the left is becoming more radical, and I really think that that's going to help us gain ground here in New Jersey.
You're right, Mike. And the other thing is that me and Tricia and I both, we understand the need for the Republican Party to be the party of life, because we believe in the unalienable God-given right of life, and we know that life begins in the womb, and we know that due process needs to be applied to those persons who are awaiting their birth. And that is why we need to make a significant dent of even the elimination of the atrocity of abortion. Mike, the Republican Party was founded on the abolitionist movement, which eliminated the atrocity of slavery in our nation. And we believe that the Republican Party today needs to stand up not only in New Jersey, but throughout the nation, and end this atrocity of abortion that's deprived the right of life to tens of millions of children since the dreadful and unconstitutional ruling in Roe v. Wade in 1973. And Tricia's committed, number one and foremost, as the New Jersey constitutional Republicans are, to protecting those who cannot protect themselves, defending the defenseless, and ending the atrocity of abortion once and for all.
Tricia, this brings up a topic that was on my list of questions for you. So why don't you please, if you would, address what JR just said, your thoughts on abortion.
Oh, exactly. I'm a mother of three. I'm a Christian. I'm dedicated, as JR said, to abolishing abortion, to rolling back Roe v. Wade. And I'll add here also that there's a practical element to this. There are two critical bills that stand to come to the U.S. Senate floor. It's the Born Alive bill and the Abortion Survivors Protection Act, which is basically it's the Born Alive bill and the Heartbeat bill. And
right.
Those two pieces of legislation have both the House has passed them, but the Senate won't bring them to the floor. And I am committed to the principles that JR outlined very eloquently, and I'm so enraged by our country's turn to the atrocities of not just abortion up and through all 9 months, but what I really believe is infanticide. It's when the child is born, as we saw, the nightmare of Virginia's governor saying that they keep the baby comfortable and then decide what to do. As Americans, as humans, we have to be outraged by this. If we do not protect the least amongst us, who is protected? And I'm dedicated to not only making sure that our principles are upheld for life, but also to do the real work of bringing those important protective laws to the Senate floor and making them the law of the land. That's how we'll push back and roll back Roe v. Wade. And I'll quickly add that now that we have a conservative majority on the Supreme Court, if it is challenged judicially, we have the backup there that I believe will deal the final blow to Roe v. Wade once and for all.
Tricia, I saw on social media that you just moved your daughter to college in a state where my daughter lives, and my daughter is here. She flew in a couple of nights ago. She's here visiting from that state, and I couldn't. My daughter's 25 years old. I could not look my beautiful daughter in the face and ever even have considered an abortion or not only having my daughter. I raised her as a single father. I don't even know how I'm trying to say this, but I just don't understand how people think that that's an option.
I completely agree. I have, and I'll share, I'm candid about this. I'll share a personal story. I have 3 beautiful children, and I have 3 what I call angel babies. I had 3 miscarriages, and I will tell you that I was told by a physician that I had to have a quote-unquote procedure because there was no heartbeat, and that I was putting my own life in danger if I didn't have a procedure. And I said to that doctor, then I'm getting a new physician, because if God, this is God's child, this life it belongs to me as I'm the mother, but I have to, my duty, my obligation is to protect my child. And I literally put my life on the line because it was that important to me. So I tell that, because I'm an open person and I'm the candidate, you should know about me. You should know where my heart lies, but you should also know that if I fight that hard with my own life, that I will surely fight on the U.S. Senate floor with everything I've got.
Tricia, I feel it bears mentioning, since you have mentioned a couple of times that you're a Christian, and this is one of my problems with Murphy. Murphy spends so much time in other communities that as a Christian in New Jersey, I almost feel like he's forgotten about us. But you're very clear on your website that, yes, you are a Christian woman, but you are also open to the beliefs of others, common ground, love, hope. So just because you are a Christian woman does not mean that Jews in this state or Muslims in this state or others in this state are going to feel left out by you.
Oh, of course not. And you're rightly referring to the part on my website where I say I lead with my faith, and many are surprised by that, but I think that is part of getting to know who I am. Faith is a big part of the fabric of our society, all faiths, and we come together in the common place of love, hope. We all want security. We all want the same things for our society and for our children. And I will share with you that I am honored. One of the greatest honors of my life is that I've been honored as both a Jacob and an Abraham member of the International Federation of Christians and Jews, recognized for my health and protection of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. I'm a huge supporter of Israel, as I am of people of all faiths who come together for our unique American principles of love, hope, faith, God, and the platform of everything that unites us. I think it's important to know where any candidate stands in their faith journey, because I believe that we're as people, we have faith, and we should all know and respect each other for the beliefs that we have. And that's what I bring to the table.
I'm looking through your website here. I'm reading through your website as you talk, and you make a great point that in the 2016 election, it was all of us who felt disenfranchised who came out and supported Donald Trump and elected Donald Trump as our president. We're all going to do it again in 2020. But as I mentioned, there are just great Republican candidates here in New Jersey at this point, and I feel like the disenfranchised New Jersey voters should be very excited about what's ahead of us and about the representatives that we have the opportunity to elect.
I think you're right. It's an exciting time, and I think that 2020 in a lot of ways is going to be even more important than 2016, because we've seen the journey. We've seen what President Trump can accomplish on his own. Can you imagine what we can accomplish as a state and as a country when we have a united Congress? We can get America's agenda fully implemented, and that will benefit all of New Jersey. And, I always say, I say it on my website, I say it in discussions and speeches, that this is your seat and your voice. That that congressional seat, that U.S. Senate seat, belongs to the people of New Jersey. I will never forget that. I will always remain accessible and accountable. And I always say also that, folks might not always agree with me, but I think that, you'll always know where I stand. And that's an important element for any U.S. Senate candidate. You have to know what I stand for, because then you know what I'll fight for. And again, all of New Jersey comes together on these conservative values. That's what I'm ready to fight for. You'll never have to wonder. I'll always be right there and accessible.
JR, we could have the same conversation with Tricia that we had with Mike Testa, and that is Tricia is telling us she is going to be our representative. And Tricia, we were talking to Mike Testa, JR, and I, and we were saying that too many of our elected representatives today don't act like they're our representatives. They act like they're our bosses. But you are clearly saying to us, you're not going to be our political boss. You're going to be our representative.
Oh, exactly.
There's no question about it. I was going to say that Tricia and Michael understand that when they read the first paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, it's actually in the second paragraph. But the purpose of government, and that's the question that we ask potential candidates all the time. What do you believe is the purpose of government? And you'll hear a different answer from every individual. They say it's to fix problems, or it's to fight for the citizen, all these generic terms that are used. But the Declaration spells out exactly what the duty of government, what the purpose of government is, and that's to secure these rights, quote unquote. What rights? The rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that means limited government. And that's what is a Republican principle that needs to be returned. We don't need to be voting for more money for $22 trillion debt. We need to be very conservative in what it is that we're funding. It means that we need to reinstitute law and order. And these are the things, and equal protection of the laws, of course, the great 14th Amendment, which is a Republican amendment. But candidates like Tricia and Michael understand that their duty is to represent their constituents, because we have to go to work. We have our own lives. We have our own jobs. They are stepping up and saying, I want to represent my constituents. I want to secure their rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you will not hear a Democrat say that is the purpose of government. They think that the government gives you those unalienable rights. And that's the difference between Republicans and Democrats, is that we believe that God gives us the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and that the government is to secure those rights. And that shows a great contrast between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Is the Democrats believe the purpose of government is to provide special rights and privileges, or special benefits and privileges, to certain groups that they deem as being oppressed, which of course is the great lie that they've perpetuated. We see it in Camden County, Mike. We see it in all the urban areas throughout the nation. The 50, 60, 70 years of Democratic rule that have led to the desolation of these urban areas, but yet the people continue to vote Democrat there, and it's because they tell these people the government exists to support you and to take care of you from cradle to the grave, and it's a lie. The Republican principle never changes, of securing the rights of the citizen, most specifically their life, their liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Tricia understands that.
And Cory Booker currently holds the seat that Tricia is running for. When you challenge Cory Booker, who thinks he's our political boss, what you get is...
There's a saying in my community, you're dipping into the Kool-Aid and you don't even know the flavor.
So you challenge Cory Booker and you're dipping into the Kool-Aid and you don't even know the flavor.
Yeah. And what the Democratic
Tricia, you were going to say something. You were going to say something. I'm sorry, we cut you off.
Oh, no. It's actually a reflection of exactly what JR is saying. He's exactly right. It's any leader derives their leadership ability from the consent of the governed, and that's something that I will never forget. And I have some real world examples there too. I mean, I stop on street corners. I was in Trenton, and I stopped to talk to people because I don't just want to talk with them. I want to listen to them. And one woman, I'll never forget it. I gave her a hug. We had about a 10-minute conversation, and she said, "I can't believe you're talking to me." She said, "Nobody ever talks to us." And I said, you will be forgotten no more. That's the key. That's the key. And you mentioned the boss. I'm not the boss. Every constituent in New Jersey will be my boss, and I will always remain accountable because that will be my job.
JR, thank you very much for calling in. The hour is up. I always appreciate your calls.
Pleasure.
And again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Tricia, how can people find you online, find you on social media? If people want to learn more about Tricia Flanagan, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, please stay close. I really mean that. I want to hear from you, and you can do that on my website at flanaganforsenate.org. You can also reach me on social media. I'm very interactive. That's a place you can ask me questions. I'll answer you, and that's on Facebook and Twitter, both at the handle of @NewDayForNJ, all spelled out. And then you can find me also on Instagram at Flanagan for Senate, and you can also find me on YouTube at New Day for NJ Infocast.
Tricia, I have been very impressed by you today. I wish you all the luck in the world. As you know, Steve Kush and I are friends. I don't just across the board support anybody who Steve happens to represent. I am truly sold on you. I am truly sold on your candidacy. I support you. I wish you all the best, and if I can do anything to help you, I'm certainly here to help you any way I can.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a true honor, and I look forward to staying close on the journey. Thank you so much.
Tricia, thank you so much for being with us today. The hour is up. I'd like to thank Tricia Flanagan for joining us, and thank you for listening to The Informed Conservative. Be sure to tune in live every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. and Saturday at 10 a.m. and check out the Informed Conservative blog at www.informedconservative.blog. Join our Informed Conservative Facebook group. Follow us on Twitter at ConserveBlog, and subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Informed Conservative.
Thank you for listening to the Informed Conservative podcast. Visit us online at informedconservative.us. Follow us on Twitter at ConserveBlog, and join the conversation at our Informed Conservative Facebook page.